Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, April 4th, 12:31 p.m. And this is the Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Space Subcommittee. I'm your chair, Delegate Regina T. Boyce, and we are going to go over 3 bills today. And in this order, SB 310, SB 434, and then SB 694. With that, let's start with SB 310. We have had this bill already, and per the Senate, they've made some changes. And Patrick, you want to go through that really quickly?
Yeah, I believe the Senate actually, I think, sent over the same bill that we sent over to them, but they're uncomfortable with the title. So we do have some amendments that really only switch up the title.
Okay.
Renaming it the Black Bear Damage Prevention and Reimbursement Fund.
Yes.
As opposed to the Black Bear Conflict Reduction and Damage Mitigation Fund, Reimbursement Fund. That's a little less wordy.
Okay.
But that's the amendment.
That is the amendment. Is there any questions or discussions? Confused? Delegate Terrassa.
Thanks. Could you just restate that? I was having trouble hearing.
Black Bear Damage Prevention and
that just the title. Yeah.
Black Bear Damage Prevention and Reimbursement Fund.
It's on the agenda as well.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Delegate Otto.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any further discussion? Delegate Terrassa?
Oh, sorry. I just didn't put my hand down.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Just want to make sure I'm getting.
Nope,
Okay.
I'm good.
I move the bill as amended.
Is there a second?
There's a second.
All in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, bill passes. Favorable with name change. Okay, SB 434. This is the Natural Resources Restorative Aquaculture Pilot Program. There's Patrick.
Okay. This bill, as I say, it establishes the pilot program. It requires the department to establish it. It provides financial incentives to a holder of an aquaculture lease who maintains the lease in accordance with criteria identified by the department, and then maintains the restorative conditions for at least 4 years. So I take that to mean there's no harvest. And then meets any of the criteria. Well, that would be an amendment. And then department is required to identify criteria and metrics for restorative aquaculture, taking into consideration oyster density, biomass, habitat complexity, and whatever else they come up with. And then the department who wanted to do a study on this, they did oppose this bill coming into the committee, but they have submitted an amendment that they are satisfied with, and the Bay Foundation, which I believe is behind this, has agreed to authorizes the department to establish any criteria that they for the program that they deem necessary, and
Right.
then
I remember this.
requires financial incentives to be financed through private donations, federal funding, money appropriation to state budget specifically for this purpose, and the catch-all any other funding. But it sounds to me like not DNR funding.
Right.
Regular
So
budget funding.
thanks so much, Patrick. I'd like DNR to speak because the letter with amendments was first, and then the letter as of March 29th was in opposition. So if they can actually state what their position is and what they're looking for, what they may have concerns with, I'd appreciate it for the group.
Hi, Madam Chair. This is Emily Wilson with
Oh,
DNR.
thank you.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we were on the Senate side trying to work through amendments with the bill sponsor and with the proponents of the bill to make it more of a study first, because it's kind of a complicated issue that we wanted to make sure that all the appropriate stakeholders were at the table, to make sure that the design was appropriate and that we were incentivizing the proper things and figuring out from where the money would come, et cetera. Those amendments were not accepted. So when we got over to the House side, then our letter was in opposition. We did offer the amendments that are being discussed now in the reprint of the bill that I believe is before you all. And with those amendments, it makes us more comfortable with the provisions of the bill.
And per discussion, would the study also help to determine where the funds would come from or where you would want them to come from?
Possibly, yeah, that certainly could be a discussion point.
And I'm looking at the amendments again now.
The amendments make changes on pages 2 and 3.
Yep.
There also is a sunset on this bill for 6 years.
Are there any questions from the body? Any discussions? Any clarifications? Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see Allison from Chesapeake Bay Foundation is on. I just wanted to see if what their position is on the amendments and if they're make sure they're okay with that or
Okay.
that.
Allison.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question, Delegate. We are comfortable with the amendments being proposed by DNR. We think that they're in line with, the original intent was to fully include members of the Aquaculture Coordinating Council and other important stakeholders. And to the previous question, I also, agree that the work group can speak to the source of the funding for this. And Section 3, I think, addresses that as well, that the department can consult with the stakeholders in developing the financial incentives. So we are in support of the department's amendments. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Allison. Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. So you're essentially willing to accept the amendments from DNR to make this a study. Is that correct?
That is what she stated, yes.
But
Well, the amendments don't make it a study. The amendments do not make it a study.
Well, then explain those again, Patrick, if you will.
Yes, the pilot program is required to be designed to provide financial incentives to aquaculture lessees. And then the lessees must meet any criteria set by the department in consultation with the Aquaculture Coordinating Council. And then the amendments also provide that financial incentives under this act shall be financed through private donations, federal funding, money appropriated in the state budget specifically for this program, and then any other funding. To me, that's cutting out, requiring DNR to fund it.
So, Patrick, I guess I'm confused because I'm looking at the amendment. And they're going to create a task force to study restorative aquaculture.
What amendment is that?
This was the amendment that Natural Resources sent, is the one that I'm reading. I believe it's the one Emily stated that they were trying to offer in the Senate and was not accepted.
I don't have that amendment. Can we share screen on that?
We can. This is per their testimony. I'm looking at the all right, let me share my screen and pull it up.
And then maybe clarify with Emily as to whether they offered that amendment in the House.
I think this is it. Can you guys see that? I cannot. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry.
I can see it.
You
We
saw the
did.
amendment?
Not anymore.
Sorry. Let me do it this way because I have two screens, and so when I share, it doesn't appropriately share. Let me try this again. My apologies. Screen. There it is.
There we go.
There it is. So this was per DNR's testimony. Amendment 1 on page 1, strike natural resources and substitute task force to study in the same line. Strike pilot program, beginning with requiring and then requiring an aquaculture coordinating council to create a task force to study restorative aquaculture and generally relating to shellfish aquaculture.
If I might, Madam Chair, this is Emily with DNR.
Yes, ma'am.
These were the amendments that we had offered on the Senate side that were not.
Yes, ma'am. I remember. You said these were not accepted.
Correct.
So where are the amendments on this side?
Patrick, do you want
Do you
to?
have the amendments?
I can double check. Hold on.
They should be in there.
There are no amendments in. There are no amendments in the floor system. Unless you have them, Patrick, and we can bring them up.
Madam Chair, maybe I can help with a share screen. What's the bill number?
I'm sorry, it is SB 434.
Okay, let me see if I can open it from the packet and share with you guys.
Madam
so
Chair,
Yes.
there was a set of amendment or a reprint that was sent out on this. That's a different set of amendments than
Yeah,
what
right.
we saw.
I'm looking up that right now.
Thank
Is
you.
this it? Is this what, Patrick, are these the correct amendments?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
Thank you,
I have them
Kristen.
now.
So do you want me just kind of scroll through for you?
Yeah, there's 2 more pages.
Okay,
There's 1 amendment on each page.
all right, so,
Okay, so there's the second page.
did you want to describe it or you want me to keep going?
If you could go back a little bit, just so I can see all of C. There you go. Again, this requires the pilot program to provide incentives to an aquaculture lessee who meets the criteria established by the department that they set in coordination with the Aquaculture Coordinating Council. Now, if we go down to page 3, I don't know if I can do that or not. Okay, and this is the funding on paragraph 4. Financial incentives that we finance through private donations, federal funding, money appropriated in state budget specifically for the program or for the incentives, and then any other funding catch-all.
So with these amendments are still not approved by the Senate, so it would have to go to conference, correct?
Well, they could accept them, or it could go to conference.
But they rejected the DNR amendments on the Senate bill on the Senate side.
Not these amendments, the study amendments,
But
the ones we were looking at earlier.
Which was DNR's original
the
amendment.
original amendments were
Yes,
rejected.
they rejected them. Yes.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yep. And there anything? Okay, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if you could bear with me a minute, I'm trying to get all this straight in my mind. So we have one set of amendments that we're looking at now. And where did those amendments come from?
CBF.
Okay, so the financial incentives and then the one about the department setting the criteria with the Agriculture Council, those came from CBF?
They might be able to speak, but somewhere between CBF and DNR.
Okay, I'd like to Delegate Ruth's point, distinguish what came from where. Because if DNR submitted one set of amendments that were rejected by the Senate, and now they're here, as the bill is, it's not something that sounds like they support. But with these amendments, I'm wondering, was it worked out together between the two, or if CBF just offered the amendments? If Emily and then Allison could speak, I'd appreciate helping out Delegate Ruth
ma'am.
and the committee.
Yes, ma'am. This is Emily Wilson with DNR. These were the reprint that you are currently viewing. The amendments here are ones that we had put together at the request, as it seemed that this bill was moving. So these were amendments that we had put together for this reprint.
Okay, and then Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The amendments were authored by DNR and CBF reviewed them and can concur with them.
Okay. That helps me. Does that help you, Delegate Ruth?
It does, thank you. And so we have this set of amendments that have not been on the Senate bill, but that everyone is in agreement with. Is that correct? And the Senate hasn't seen it. We don't have feedback from the Senate on these. But then we have the other set of amendments, which would turn it into a study, and the Senate specifically rejected those. Do I have that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
But just to also clarify, it sounds like even though the DNR's original amendments to change it to a task force was rejected, it sounds like they put this together and feel more comfortable with this, and it sounds like CBF is in agreement with it. And so I would say no longer in opposition, but is supportive given these amendments that they put together. Delegate Jacobs.
Yeah, but I want to clarify with Emily. She said those amendments were requested, and I'd like to know who requested those amendments.
Emily.
To be honest with you, I don't know. I think our secretary maybe was having some conversations, and he came back to our fisheries folks and asking what language might be acceptable to us, and this is what was proposed.
All right, thank you.
There any other questions or clarifications?
I should note that there is a fiscal note on this bill, and we would have to send it to appropriations.
Given the amendments, or?
I don't know that the amendments would change the fiscal note at all.
I'm just triple checking this. It's 100 and, well, it goes up every year, but say about $150,000. Well, we can certainly let appropriations figure that out. And it goes up to almost $200,000 by FY 2028. Delegate Tarasa.
Thanks, and I'm sorry if I'm not following. We're not doing the amendment, right? That just changes it to a task force. Is that correct?
That is correct. Those were
Okay.
offered originally and not accepted by the Senate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. And at this, Delegate Jacobs.
I tell you, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of confusion in this bill. And I'm not willing to vote for it with these amendments. I'd be willing to vote for it with the amendments that were first offered by DNR in the Senate to establish a task force. I think they're just trying to, I think there's an effort here to just try to do an end around without proper study on this, which is a change in the process. And the funding is a question mark. And I'd be in favor of a task force, but not under these amendments.
Thanks, Delegate Jacob. And I certainly share your concern, only that in that it is, 6 days into the end of session, and whether it's a task force or whether it's this bill, and I'm not sure if it was a task force, does it even save any cost? We would still have to figure that out. But
you got amendments that have not been accepted by the Senate either way. Whether you send these over or whether
you're absolutely right.
Or whether you accept or whether you adopt the amendments that DNR first offered, you can also do those and send them back over. Either way, neither one have been accepted.
That is factual. I guess the question for DNR was that, given it's a new administration, given that there are lack of bodies of people, or I guess should say employees, was there also more of an issue? I heard Emily stated that it was a complicated issue to begin with, but I'm wondering, is it also because there may be a lack of employee bodies to also manage it? And I guess from Emily, we would like to know the difference between the organization standing up the task force versus the bill as amended here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Emily Wilson with DNR.
Mm-hmm.
We did, and I also have Sarah Widman is on here also from Fisheries, so she might be able to add some additional information if that would be helpful. But yes, staffing, I don't think it's any secret. Staffing has been an issue for a little while, especially in fisheries. And we did just bring on a new director of aquaculture, which should prove to be very, very helpful to our efforts in the aquaculture arena. But I believe he's been on for maybe a month now.
Right.
And I don't know if Sarah has anything additional to add.
Yeah, Madam Chair and committee members. So I think the having study time and being able to talk more about it would help us gauge exactly what we would need staff-wise. Not to say that we wouldn't need to come back and ask for additional staff if we're setting up a program in the future. It just wouldn't be something we would have to invest in or be concerned about at this moment. We did just bring on, as Emily pointed out, a new director of that division, but also some new staff members to bring us up to speed and hopefully process aquaculture applications faster than we've been able to. So I think our concern there was pulling staff away from something we just got up and running at a acceptable level to now start running another program was a concern we had.
Okay. And I'm sorry, just to also clarify, it sounds like DNR was afraid, if that's the right way to say it, that this bill would pass knowing that they may not have had the capacity to manage it. So they put together this that they thought would be Sarah, whatever it would be, I guess, somewhat helpful to them if they thought something would otherwise go through that they couldn't manage.
Right. I think that's certainly part of it, and to certainly clarify the goals of the incentives, make sure that we're all understanding what the payments would be going to.
Okay. Okay, okay. That's because the bill still clearly says money appropriated in the state budget specifically for payments of the incentives. And I think that's what we would have to go back with. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I understand DNR's point about lack of staff, and certainly that is a concern. I did want to go back to Chesapeake Bay Foundation because I had been confused about the amendments, what I asked before. And so I wanted to specifically ask their position on the task force amendment.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody specific you want to direct it to? And just so our guests know, we don't accept raised hands. It has to be a member asking for someone to speak. So I do apologize for that. Who are you directing your?
Well, I know Allison is here. I'm not sure who else is here from Chesapeake.
There were some other people on the calls. I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure who would be best, but I guess Allison.
Allison, okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. Related, I'm assuming we're talking about the amendment on the Senate, offered on the Senate side. Is that correct?
The task force amendment, not the one that we're looking at now, the one we looked at a little bit ago.
Yeah, thank you. So the bill as written kind of already incorporates that into the timeline. As mentioned previously, it's a bill that sunsets in 6 years and is set up so that the first year is actually the coordination with the Aquaculture Coordinating Council, as well as outside experts from the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. So because it is already set up in the way where the first year is designed to develop the framework and the metrics, we didn't think it was necessary to basically walk it back, take a step back and do 2 separate bills when the bill was already set up to facilitate those discussions and those frameworks between DNR and the Aquaculture Coordinating Council in the first year of the bill. So that's why, that we would support these amendments over those that were offered in the Senate.
So there would be the first year, there's not actually any financial incentives offered. It's basically looking at it, setting up the framework, studying it. Is that
yeah,
correct?
correct. And that's not necessarily explicitly written in there, but due to the requirement that you have to maintain those conditions on your lease for at least 4 years before incentives would be paid out. You have to develop the metrics and then maintain them for 4 years before any incentives would be paid out. So it's not as though it would be expected to be paying out those incentives prior to DNR and the Aquaculture Coordinating Council and others deciding what the framework is going to be, what the incentives are going to look like, how it is funded, so on and so forth.
But it does require DNR to adopt regulations, which is sort of one step beyond doing a study. And so, I mean, and it does have October 1st, 2024. So that is a good amount of time. But I'm trying to get at their concerns about staffing and capacity.
If I could speak to that, it's not our intention. Obviously, our organization has been in front of this committee a couple times this session talking about our concerns with the aquaculture leasing times and things like that. So it's definitely not our concern or not our intent to pull significant capacity away from those important things that DNR staff are doing and addressing. And so by coordinating with the Aquaculture Coordinating Council and bringing in outside experts from the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, it was our intent that this, like many other working groups that have been developed through boards and commissions, could work semi-independently and not necessarily rely on DNR staff, except for maybe, organizing meetings. But a lot of this work is going to be just simply reviewing scientific studies and research that already exist and kind of collating all of that information. So it was not our intent to be a drain on DNR resources, but rather to have work groups or smaller subgroups of the ACC addressing those issues, maybe outside of things that had to incorporate staff time.
Thank you.
Delegate Allen, I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to note for the group, excuse me. I just heard back from the Senate bill's sponsor, and she said she appreciates the help of Chesapeake Bay Foundation with the second group of amendments, and she supports those amendments, the second one, not the ones rejected by the Senate.
Which ones?
The ones
before us right now.
the ones
Thank
before us right now.
Thank you.
So can we move those?
I'll second them.
Regina, you're muted.
I'm sorry, is there a motion to move the amendments?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition?
I'm opposed.
Opposed.
Okay, Otto, Jacobs opposed. The bill as amended.
Move the bill.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Second.
opposed?
I'm
No.
opposed.
No,
Thank you.
I
Opposed?
oppose the amendments also.
Thank you. So we have Delegate Baker, Delegate Otto, and Delegate Jacobs in opposition. Thank you. All right, we're going to go now to SB 694. Kristen?
Yeah, so Senate Bill 694 relates to DNR's authority to exchange DNR lands for private real property. And the bill would exempt certain land exchanges from having to comply with the full procedures for land dispositions if the real property owned by the state does not exceed 5 acres in size, and the owner of the privately owned real property requesting the exchange pays all costs associated with the exchange. There's also language adding that prior to a property exchange under the bill, the department must refer the proposed exchange to the Board of Public Works for final disposition.
And this was for, was it 5,000?
As long that the land can't exceed 5 acres.
5 acres, sorry. So it's 5 acres or less. And Kristen, to be, I guess, transparent, is that it could get to the Board of Public Works and they could deny it. Potentially.
Yeah, they would still have the final.
Safe, yeah. Delegate Tarasa, then Delegate Allen. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. So what process are we cutting out? Because I guess I have some concerns about that.
Yeah, so generally when state land is being disposed, the unit of state government would have to notify the Department of Planning. The Department of Planning would then have to also take certain action, notifying specified committees of the General Assembly, notifying General Assembly members who represent the legislative district in which the property is located, and also notifying owners of property adjacent to the property that's been declared excess.
Okay, I have a lot of concern about that. Cutting the public out of that process. I mean, 5 acres might not be a lot of land for DNR, but it's a lot of land if it's next to your property or it's part of your local plan for something.
Yeah, and we did not receive amendments to address the issues, but the Department of Natural Resources did reach out to say that they're aware of the issues and that they could, potentially work on addressing those concerns with amendments.
Delegate Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to check, I guess with you, Kristen. I was looking through the committee testimony. I know sometimes the Senate stuff doesn't transfer over. Was there any opposition to this bill at all in either the Senate or House versions?
No, we just received testimony from DNR and the sponsor that we should have the Senate testimony in our.
We do. I just want to make sure because I
Yeah.
know sometimes people say things don't transfer over. So, okay, I just want to make sure. So no opposition. Thank you.
I did not see any in the file.
Delegate Stein, then Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kristen, did I hear you say that DNR said that it could address concerns with amendments?
Potentially, yes. We didn't get into the details, but I know that they're aware of the issues with the notification and whether lands are adjacent lands. I know DNR is on the call. I'm not sure if they have any ideas or if they were just trying to figure out what the direction, the committee wanted to go in.
So, Madam Chair, if I could ask DNR.
Yes, sir.
If DNR is contemplating any possible amendments, or as Kristen said, wanted to wait to hear what direction the subcommittee wanted to go.
Yep. Madam Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Delegate Stein. Yes, absolutely. We heard, I think it was Delegate Foley, I think in the committee raised actually some good points in terms of, does this contemplate properties that are adjacent to DNR lands? And the answer is absolutely yes. And would we be willing to notify adjacent property owners? And the answer to that is yes. So we have already begun discussions with our Attorney General's office on amendments to address those concerns. This really is designed for very small and very rare instances where we have an issue with a private property that's adjacent to an existing DNR land, where there's some encroachment of some sort, and it can be worked out between the department and the private property owner to do a land exchange whereby both parties are satisfied, and the department still gets the exact same, if not better, piece of property in exchange to then deal with the encroachment and then clean up our boundaries. And it provides for much better management for us. You have to keep in mind that we own over 500,000 acres across the state, and we have been acquiring properties for probably going on 50 years now, if not more. And with that much ownership across the state and that long of time, there are absolutely mistakes that have been made in the past. And then maybe when a boundary survey was not done prior to acquisition, as it turns out, there's like a sliver of somebody's driveway or somebody's shed or something that is encroaching on DNR land. And we just want to be able to take care of that very efficiently, moving forward to where all parties are satisfied.
So, Emily, I just want to ask a quick follow-up question. And so, in the case where this has happened and it has taken a long time, and in its rarity, has it always been property abutted directly to state land?
Yes. Yes.
And you mentioned AG amendments, or do we have those?
I can certainly share those. Absolutely.
Okay. We like to be able to see those so that the committee can be a little more comfortable with.
Sure. Yeah,
this.
that's
And certainly understand it. And if I can make one assertion, especially as we talk about, we just passed our HB 723 as it relates to the increase in forest and tree canopy. If the state decides that it wants to increase its net worth of of land, it sounds like this would also be a better way to quickly get to that. Delegate Tarassa.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to understand this, they can already do this. This doesn't prevent them. This doesn't prevent DNR from doing this exchange anyway. Is that right?
As I understand it, it does. It sounds like this bill streamlines it. Am I correct, Kristen?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have truck traffic behind me if I'm understanding. It's I guess a heavy duty truck out there, but hold on. They just keep going by. So are you asking whether they can do this, you know, can you ask the question again? I guess
Yeah,
is probably
sure.
the best way to do it.
No problem. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is, like, I absolutely appreciate DNR's need to do land exchange. Certainly to work out a driveway or something like that, but you don't need 5 acres for a driveway. But I can see where DNR would want to exchange land. And I actually think there's probably really good reasons to want to exchange land. And now I'm forgetting my question to you. Oh, but they can do that already, right? They can
Yes.
already.
Yes,
So-
yeah, there's procedures and statute that govern the exchange of land.
So is there a public process like left in this? I mean, my concern is doing this without that. And I don't know if this question is for you, Kristen, or this is for DNR, but I understand that we're always talking about land abutting state land, but is the exchange for land abutting state, like you're saying both pieces of property being exchanged are on state land? I mean, sorry, are abutting state land? Is that?
I would defer to the department. I think that's what they're saying, but I don't want to speak for the department on that.
Emily.
Yes, thank you again, Emily Wilson, DNR. Yes, the intent certainly would be for us to accept an equal, if not better, piece of property that's already adjacent to DNR lands. We certainly wouldn't want. That's not what we want to do. Is get these one-offs, here and there that aren't adjacent to property that we already own.
No, I appreciate that. That's the land that you want to get, and that makes perfect sense. I would just say that what I'm worried about is the other piece of land, the piece of land that you're giving up. So is that always going to be adjacent to parkland?
Yeah, I mean,
It's their land.
it's the property that we would own, that we would be giving up, where there would be the issue associated with it, like a driveway or something.
Well, okay, so, and I guess what I would want to see in this is restricting it to next to state, in like both pieces of property abutting state land, because I guess what my concern is, I've seen this on the county level where the county exchanges pieces of property, and it can be really important for parks, for example, but it's the other piece of property that's getting exchanged, a smaller piece of property that you're giving up, maybe in the middle of the neighborhood or somewhere else, that creates development rights or other rights that that may be fine, but should have public notice associated with them.
Understood.
So, and can you help me understand the problem this is trying to solve? So how much longer does that process take, and what's the cost to you of that process that allows our constituents to know about the exchange?
So right now, the process could take upwards of a year, if not more, sometimes. And the cost associated with it include not just staff time, but there's the requirement for 2 independent appraisals. And we're talking about a lot of times, like, a couple of tens of thousands of square feet of property where the appraisal cost would exceed the actual value of the property in some instances.
Yeah, and I'm not as concerned about the appraisal of the property, although maybe one would be in order, but what I'm concerned about the public notice. So I could see this being something that could be worked out, but so without this process, how fast do you think this could happen? And couldn't public notice be built into that process somehow?
Well, what I was saying was, without the process that this bill contemplates, it could take upwards of a year, if not more.
Right. But with this bill.
And with this bill, This would streamline it such and please don't forget, we are still subject to Board of Public Works procedures, policies and guidelines, whereby there would still be an appraisal requirement for a disposition of property, but we could do it at a staff level appraisal, which would be a little bit more efficient for us.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But how much shorter do you think the process is with what's proposed here? Like, how much time are you saving?
I think we could probably do it in a matter of maybe 1 to 2 months.
Okay, and so I guess back to the committee, I guess my comment would be, I don't have concerns about shortening the process and maybe not doing appraisals on a small piece of land, although I would say 5 acres is a lot more than I feel immediately comfortable with, but I could get more comfortable with that piece. But the piece where we're cutting out public input, I have a major problem with.
I guess the question is what public is around?
Right, and that's where I think we would be, we're very comfortable with putting a provision in there to provide notice to adjacent property owners.
Okay.
Who gets notice now? Adjacent property owners and us, we get notice, or the people who represent the area.
The committees of the General Assembly and the members who represent that legislative district, along with the adjacent property owners.
So, Madam Chair, I guess what I would say is if we're thinking about moving forward with this, and I do understand the need for some streamlining of that process, I really would hope that we would build in both of the entire existing public notice in the sense, because I think that's really important. And when you say to your question of like what could be there, I mean, a lot of the property either side of the exchange could be right in the middle of the neighborhood. It could be right next door to your house and multiple other pieces of. It could involve development. It could involve whatever it could involve. Like when you say a small piece of driveway, I get that, but that's not. I mean, not anywhere near my district. Would that be 5 acre driveway? I don't know if that is in other areas, but 5 acres is a lot for like a small adjustment.
I mean, I guess if it can also be answered, again, they say these are rare. And I guess in the last 30 or 50 years, how many of these per year actually happen?
On average, I don't even think you could say 1 per year, to be honest with you. And these are, again, DNR lands tending to be in more rural areas. So we're not like in like communities per se, as if like it's a local park. These are very different kinds of lands that we're talking about.
Okay, Delegate Ruth. I'm sorry, Delegate Terrassa, are you done? I didn't.
No, I still think that we need public notice in this, and I don't think that's a lengthy process. I just think it's a necessary piece of the process.
Okay, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, that exchange was very helpful to me, and it really addressed some of my thinking and concerns. And I do agree with Delegate Terrassa that I would like to see the full notice. I mean, I would like to see at least adjacent property owners and elected officials who represent that area, because at least elected officials can probably know something about the property, and if they feel there's a concern, they can raise it. So I would like to see that. I agree. I don't think that the appraisals are necessary in this instance, but 5 acres is pretty large. I actually grew up on a piece of property that was about 5 acres, so I have a really good idea of how big it is. It could have, some forested land. It could have somebody's favorite fishing hole, and just, I mean, I think it's important for people to know what's happening in these kind of situations. And I understand about the encroachment, but it could be the encroachment is on part of the property, but part of the property is not, and so I just think that the public notice is important. And I would also like to see the amendment for adjacent properties as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Ruth. And again, for the DNR folks on the call, you mentioned that you have these amendments. If we could get them, we can I'm sure, get these amendments agreed upon and adopted so that we can move the bill. If not, it doesn't seem like people are comfortable, at least some, with moving the bill as is without those clarifications.
Sure thing, and understood about the legislative district notification as well. Thank you so much.
Is that something you guys do in-house anyway?
We do it when we're doing acquisitions, yes, and with other
Okay.
dispositions, yes, certainly. So that's we can certainly do that.
And how soon can you get those amendments to us? Because we're on our last bill, so
Mhm. Oh,
I think they're currently being worked on by their AG.
right.
got it. Okay, the AG's working on them.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna hold this, and once we get those amendments, hopefully, I don't know when we're gonna get them, but as soon as we do, and as certainly as more bills come in, we'll get it back on the agenda so that we can review them, potentially vote on them, and potentially move this bill. There anything else? Any other questions? Any other clarifications? Any other concerns? Well, thank you all. Good work, and I'll see you during voting. This ends the subcommittee
Thank you, Madam Chair.
meeting. Thank you.